All right, we're taking a look at the great Willie Nelson standard "Crazy." Gives us a wonderful opportunity to check out a lot of stuff that is essential to understand, and that not only includes melody but also includes the chord progression. So we're going to take a special look at the chord progression today, with an emphasis on the secondary dominant and the passing diminished chords. All right. So let's start just right at the beginning. We've got a little four measure intro, and we start with the one chord in the key of C, then to the four chord. So these are both diatonic. Then to the three chord, C D E minor, also diatonic, belongs to that's derived from the notes of the C major scale. Then the D minor chord, two chord, diatonic, derived completely from the C major scale. And then the G7 chord, again diatonic, derived from the C major scale. You can probably hear that if I just sort of comp through it. F, two, three, four, one. So no, nothing strange there. Okay, so we have C major again when we start with on the body of the tune. This B flat. I'm not going to really try to explain it right now. I could explain it as a secondary substitute dominant or some silly thing like that, but let's just explain it like a chromatic movement toward a chord in the key. Right? That's really all it is. It's just a chromatic movement as to chord in the key. Okay, so we have C with this little chromaticism to the, or we could do a major. Okay, and then so what is this A7? What's this A7 chord about? Because everything up here was diatonic, meaning that all the notes that we had here were in the key of C major. The notes of C are C, E, G, then F, A, C, E, G, B, D, F, A, G, B, D, right? So as you didn't hear me say any sharps or flats there, so all of those notes belong in the key of C. And then same thing here. That little chromatic anomaly, we're not, and it happens so shortly, we're not going to start getting weird about that. And then we have the A7 chord. But wait, look, there's a C sharp there. So obviously C sharp note it doesn't come from a C major scale. This C sharp note this chord is spelled A, C sharp, E, and G. So we have to somehow be able to explain this A7. And the way we explain this A7 is we call it a secondary dominant. The primary dominant in the key of C is G7. And that means that it's diatonic. That means there are no sharps or flats in that note, in that chord. They all come out of the scale of C. So G, B, D, and F, all out of the scale of C. But A, C sharp, E, and G, there's that C sharp that isn't in the C major scale, right? And that C sharp, what it does is it leads up to the root of the D minor chord. So you've got this resolution. Right, very, very clearly. So it just gives us more forward motion. So essentially what we're doing is we're saying, well, this chord could be in the key of D minor, And so we're just going to throw that in there because it just gives us more forward motion leading to D minor. Secondary dominant, a secondary dominant. It's not the only one. So this is the 2 chord. This is the secondary dominant chord, primary dominant. And here we go with a passing diminished chord. Now this passing diminished chord let me play it in context. I'll start at the beginning. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 3, 4. There's the diminished. And then that just ends. So if I play the E flat diminished by itself down here an octave lower, it's really clear what that chord is doing. It's passing to the C major chord, and then we have another passing diminished to the 2 chord. This is a really classic progression. You've got to get these underneath your fingers. C major, C sharp, D diminished, 2 chord, and the 5 chord, right? And then we've got the same thing going again. The next 8 measures is C major with that fun, anomalous little B flat country kind of thing that drops down to the secondary dominant chord, and that again, that secondary dominant leads to its D minor, right? You've got that raised C, giving us a C sharp. So it really wants to go up to that leading tone, is artificially, if you will, created so that we have a sharp, and they missed that sharp here in the chart writing. Okay, but it should be there, but it's not. You can't have an A7 with a C sharp and a C natural in the melody. Mistake. Moving on. And then we have that leading to the D minor, and then the G7 is our primary dominant. All the notes of the G7 chord belong in. They come out of the C major scale. Then we have a nice little turnaround. There's my passing diminished. And then that goes to the C with an E. Okay, and then 4 chord, passing diminished. How many times have you heard that change? So you've got that F sharp diminished 7th is probably the most common. The 4. It's called the augmented 4 diminished chord. Well, it'd be nice if we had some like simpler names, but augmented. It's called the augmented 4 diminished chord because it takes the 4th degree of the scale, C, D, E, F, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you augment it. That means you raise it up, making it an F sharp, and then it's a diminished chord, right? So augmented 4 diminished chord. If I take this down here, I'll show you what I'm saying. That movement, C7, It's a little heavy down here. And C. You can hear that F sharp diminished seventh, really common chord sound. If maybe I'll play it where it's a little bit lighter. C7, F diminished, C F, and then that F sharp leads up to the C. A very common chord progression. And then we have another secondary dominant here, D7, leading, and we know that the D7 is the 5 chord of G, and so if my theory is correct here, this is going to lead to a G chord, a G7 chord, and then we have the G7 and the augmented. So yeah. So let me just take what's happening here. We have C 2 3 4 D7 and then G7. Right. And so very super common change. We call this the 5 of the 5, and then the G7 with an augmented 5. That's what the plus sign is. And then C, the anomalous B flat, and A7, leading to the A7, again, a secondary dominant, leading to the 2 chord, and then the 4 chord. This is all very diatonic. We have the 4 chord, down to the 3 chord, to the 2, to the passing, and that could be an A7 as well. It's functioning as an A7, and D minor, and G7, and C. Okay, cool. All right, so you can hear all of that, I'm sure. So that's a quick harmonic analysis of crazy, looking at this idea of secondary dominance. Why do you need to know this, right? Like, why do you need to know this? I'll tell you why. Because that was a rhetorical question. Because you want to be able to memorize these tunes, and when you look at chords and they're just like a mumbo jumbo of a bunch of letters, you're never going to understand the context in which these chord progressions are written. You need to understand a deeper context. Like, where does this stuff come from? Why are we doing this? What does diatonic mean? What does a secondary dominant mean? It all informs your ability to memorize and understand the tune and where it's going. Now, since we talked about secondary dominance, let's take another look at another standard jazz tune. This is a quick and easy one. It's not quite as involved looking as this with passing diminished and stuff. So this is it also in the key of C. So we start off, we're on the 1 chord, and then we go to a secondary dominant chord. And that secondary dominant chord, E, G sharp, B, and D, leads to another secondary dominant chord, but the key of A, right? This is the 5 chord of the key of A. This is the 5 chord of the key of D, right? This is the 5 chord of the key of A, whether it be minor or major, doesn't matter. This is the 5 chord of the key of G, and this D minor that happens in between, I've heard it called interpolation, right? It changes. You can look the word up. Okay, D7, D minor 7, and then G7, right? Secondary dominant to the primary dominant. Tonic, secondary dominant of the A, secondary dominant of the D, and then the 4 chord, the 4 minor chord, the 1 chord, secondary dominant of the D, primary dominant of the one chord. So, there's a quick analysis of another tune. The quicker you get at doing this, the easier it'll be for you to memorize tunes and then ultimately to start soloing over them. And because to solo over a tune, you've really got to know it backwards and forwards. And I don't care if it's a simple tune or a difficult tune. Sometimes the difficult tunes that look difficult end up being easier because they're easier to understand sometimes, right? And crazy is an example of that, as is all of me. Okay, so that was a harmonic analysis, specifically focusing on two elements of harmony. One of them being the secondary dominant chord, which is all over this tune here, and the other one being the passing diminished chord. Get those diminished chords underneath your fingers. These diminished passages like. You could hear that chromatic line, right? Right, and that's what diminished chords tend to do. They fill in those the diatonic lines, right, with chromatic lines. Right, you get the idea. Okay, good. So I hope that was a help. And yeah, that was about secondary dominant chords and passing diminished chords mostly. But those are very, very unifying, powerful elements in tunes like Crazy and like All of Me, for instance. Okay, if that was a help to you, let us know. It really helps. Subscribe and click like and what else? Oh yeah, and if you've got any questions, let us know. Questions are great, and we like to answer them. If there's any tune that you'd like to see us do or you'd like to learn, let us know. Okay, thanks for stopping by, and that was a harmonic analysis of Crazy by Willie.